Welcome back to We Are TPM. We are here for this week's episode again with John Teixeira and Kyle Teixeira. We're ready to get into it with you.
Yeah, excited. Today, we're doing actually part 2 of our series on how does a great property manager make you more money, right?
More money is
more money. That's right. Make even more money than you're already making. So a lot of people out there. So this series is really for the people that are already landlords, property managers. They own property that they're renting and they're doing pretty well with it, right, Kyle? We see a lot of people, they do just fine, but the purpose of this is really to show you how we can make you maximize that investment and make you the most money you can.
It's for everybody with rental properties or rent portfolio who doesn't have a good PM making them more money.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
That's it.
I love it.
Could be a bigger crowd than just that. So.
That's right. All right, so let's get right into it. So this is part 2 of our series, and it's regarding maintenance, right? It's probably, we put it as part 2 because it's probably the second biggest way that we as great property managers help our clients make them the most money and maximize that investment. Because part of what we're doing is we're not just collecting rent, we're not just finding tenants, we're maintaining that asset, right? Making sure it's standing, making sure it's in great condition, making sure it's in the condition it needs to be in to get the most rent.
Managing all aspects of that property, yeah. So, and a huge part of that, it ties into it is maintenance, and it's a huge part that can vary on how successful or unsuccessful it makes your rental and your profit margins.
Such a true statement. So, Kyle, let's get into our topic here, and the first part of it I wanted to go over is the biggest reason why a great property manager can really help you with maintenance is because they have the experience that's needed to make the correct decision. And the correct decision, I use that term because that's not always the cheapest decision, right?
It is. It brings in a lot of factors. The correct decision is not just doing maintenance correctly, but doing the correct maintenance, knowing what the correct maintenance to do is and the correct maintenance not to do is, and really what you label maintenance and what you don't. So, because it's not always maintenance, renovations, upgrades, strategic maintenance.
Well, we're going to get into that, so don't get ahead of us because we're going to get into that here. But you're absolutely 100% correct. It's not all just maintenance and repairs, right? And that's what we're talking about today. Is we're talking about all of it. So, knowing the best method for the overall health of the home is one of the things that you get from that experience, right? So let's say, I don't know, a common one I like to use is foundation. Right? Foundation, like you got some cracks showing up, showing some signs of stress. So people kind of freak out and think that they need foundation work and they need some piers and it's going to cost $10,000. And that's what I hear all the time. When in reality, it doesn't cost that much. It's not that big a deal. And maybe it doesn't even need piers. Like, I like to look around the home at the cause of the problem. Where are there drainage problems? Where is there too much water sitting around or not enough? Where do we have erosion? We just look for all the signs. Some people put planters up where it holds water next to the home. Look for signs that might have caused the problem and then get rid of that. And sometimes it's as simple as a French drain.
And knowing all the solutions is kind of what you're saying, because sometimes the solutions aren't the best logistical solutions, but are possible. You can work it out. It can be something you can do, and it's not always on rentals. Sometimes it's a logistical problem because you're not the homeowner. From my personal experience, my first home needed when I acquired it, it said 26 piers on it for foundation issues. Well, I was a property manager and still am, but I went my own route and got gutters and watered the lawn that hadn't been watered in 20 years and, got that part of it correct. And by the end of it, it needed 3 piers on one corner, because that's what was dragging down the home. It was the ground. So knowing why things happen really help you make the correct decision on how to mitigate them. So
that's a great example of that's exactly right. So how about anticipating future problems, Kyle? Just being proactive. to see things in the future.
Yeah, and part of that is the decisions you make on how you cost decisions. When you maintenance something 17 times that you could have just replaced once, is, when is that decision made? If it's made too deep into the 17, if it's the sixth time, seventh time, then you're like, well, I've already gotten here. So making those proactive decisions from the first or second time is a somewhat decent example, I guess.
So what you're saying is like knowing that if I repair this, I'm going to be repairing it again. So maybe it needs a different repair or replacement instead. Yes,
and knowing the cost of both, or at least looking at it. If your repair cost is $200 and your replacement cost is $220, it doesn't really matter how many, what's the life of this maintenance repair versus an extra $20 to have something brand new. So it's not always true, but there is definitely instances where it is. So.
When I think about being proactive in future problems, I hate to pick on the foundation, but I'm going to go there again because, our homes that we manage that don't have a sprinkler system, one of our checklist items during turnover is making sure it has
soaker
hoses all the way around with timers. That's just being proactive. That's something most people won't do. That's just recognizing that tenants aren't going to take the time to take a sprinkler hose and move it around the yard like a homeowner would with as much care. And so let's be proactive and make sure that foundation gets watered on a regular basis.
Yeah, and
soaker hose.
It's being proactive because it's thinking about the logistics and in what interest is things being done. It's in our interest to make sure the property is taken care of for our homeowner. It's in our homeowner's interest to make sure it's taken care of. Tenants' interests aren't fully about the foundation, right? So that's where timers come in and having those little pieces where it actually gets done. So not just do this.
You touched on this, Kyle, but having an understanding of the cost of services really helps, doesn't it? It helps in making those decisions.
It's essential. It's because a lot of times you have to either bring people in to estimate things. You have to spend money to make those considerations. Well, if you already know or you have a ballpark or a really strict idea of it, you can make those decisions not just on the fly, but you can advise, you can give options to people that otherwise would only have one or two maybe.
It's like we call that reducing the learning curve a little bit, right? Instead of taking the time and bringing a bunch of people out to answer your question because you need all the options and how much they cost, we probably have already done it and we probably already know at least about how much it costs.
Yeah, because it's like any other service. I believe property managers are paid for their experience on top of doing something you either don't want to do or don't have time to do or anything like that. It is also something that they should be exclusively educated and experienced in. So
I love it. So Kyle, for the second part of this, I really want to touch on is having the right contractors that you trust. This is a really big one, isn't it? And so I want to get into this really deep with you if we can, because we kind of pride ourselves on this very thing, right? I think if you're trying new contractors, you got to be quick to move on. But then when you get loyalty and you recognize that loyalty and you recognize integrity in a contractor and somebody willing to serve you in the best possible way, you've got to hang on to that, don't you?
Yeah, contractors are just like, they aren't always treated this way, but they're just like employees or any other decision you make in a business is you set the expectation, they should give you an expectation, and that will make the whole thing seamless. It also makes it clear when one end of the stick isn't being fulfilled. So having that solid, like you said, loyalty comes after setting those expectations and getting experience with each other, of course, but
yeah, it does.
Making sure you can have a team, because they are part of your team, whether they work for you, they don't.
Yes, sir.
Someone that you can trust and that will hold themselves responsible for their own work. So, we told our homeowner this was going to cost this much, you were going to do it, you did it. There's a small issue. There's not a conversation of what that's going back out there to take care of what was already decided is. It's just go back out there and finish it. If you have to have that conversation, maybe there's a problem with those expectations and everything. So
you're right. I love that you recognized that these are a part of our team, because there's a lot of people that are part of our team, like our lenders and our insurance people and our title people and our inspector and all these people we've always considered part of our team. We consider our trusted contractors, not all of our contractors, but the ones you just described, the loyal, trusted contractors that have been with us a while. They're absolutely team members of ours.
Yeah, and it's not even just us considering them part of our team. Our tenants will ultimately, enough loyalty and use, they will consider, and the contractor will consider a part of our team, because they're on their phone. They try to bypass us to, speak to the contractor,
which we do not have a problem with.
No,
as long as it's our contractor.
Yeah, but it's a thing.
So Kyle, when I think of the reason why having the right contractor being so important, the first thing I think of is diagnosis and evaluation, right? We have a problem. We've got 200 properties that we're going to manage, and we don't have time to go out to every single one and put our eyeballs on all of the problems that come up when you're looking at, managing 200, 300, 400 properties. So you want to trust your contractor to be able to go out there, evaluate what's happening correctly using their expertise that you trust, and give a correct diagnosis with some great options.
Yeah. And I mean, we can create the options from a diagnosis, but having a contractor that can do that for us first and then let us build off it is huge. And diagnosis part is huge too. I mean, it's just like, we've talked about this. A tenant submit a work order and tell me something's broke. It's not very useful to me. It tells us we need to get out there, but it doesn't describe the issue. I shouldn't be getting that from my diagnosis person too, that, hey, your microwave's broke. No, why is it broken? What's wrong with it? I can't build off broke. You're just telling me to replace it. Is it need a new, little spinny tray, whatever. What's the problem? How are we fixing it? Why are we fixing it? Because that's what our homeowners are going to want to know. And that's what we owe them to tell them when we're doing any repairs.
Yep, absolutely. So, that, and that kind of leads into, as far as diagnosis, one of the things when you have somebody out to your home to do something, especially when it's an expertise that you don't know, right? You and I have more of an expertise than the average person, maybe even the average homeowner, because of how often we deal with this stuff. However, something you don't know about and you bring a contractor out there, like let's say AC. AC is a classic example. Like, who really understands the inner workings of an AC guy except an AC guy, right? And so you send him out there and he says, this is what's wrong. Like, how are you ever going to know, unless you trust and know that contractor, that you're not being taken or told something that's, whether it's intentional or not, that's wrong? You know what I mean? Like, doesn't everybody have those moments in their life where they're trusting their contractor because they feel like, this seems like a good guy. He seems like he has integrity and he says this is what's wrong. So, all right, here's $400, go fix it. How do we know it costs that much? How do we know that's actually the best solution? That's actually, you never really know. There's always a level of trust that you're putting in.
There has to be a level of trust and knowledge of experience, all those things. It's kind of like when I get told, don't send your wife to the car shop by herself, because they're going to tell her everything's wrong. That's just, it's not going to say anything about that other than the statement is because there's an assumption that, not they're taking advantage, but they don't know the details of the inner workings, right? I won't say we know the full details of the inner workings of HVAC, but we definitely know the steps of what causes what and what leads to what and why, and that's important. If my AC is cooling but the fan won't kick on and you're telling me it's out of Freon, I'm like, well, okay, well, how do we know that until the fan's on? Then check the Freon, that kind of thing. There's a step to the process.
Yeah, and to your point, and to the point of our topic is having that right contractor allows us to not have to go through those steps, right? We have a couple AC contractors we use that we have so much trust in that we don't even need to question when they say, right? our AC contractor we've been using for years. I'm going to give them a shout out. Is that okay, Kyle? Is it okay? We give them a shout out. Jesse Romero. Romero's HVAC or Romero's Heating and AC is what it's called technically. But Jesse and I go way back. His son Tim has been running the company. They are great people, tons of integrity. And one of the things I learned from working with them, I learned a lot about AC because they stopped and they explained to you, especially if you were on site, right? They would stop and show you and explain to you. And they've been a real blessing in our understanding and our level of understanding on where we are right now.
Oh, they're a huge part of it. And like you said, the trust makes it to where you don't need to know all those details, or you can trust that that their diagnosis is true. That doesn't mean we don't get them, right? They still provide those to us. There's never a question or a question we reach out about why this happened, whatever the case, that they can't answer right then and there, or I can't talk to the tech that went there, or the tech doesn't come by our office if it's a big enough issue and explain it there at face value. So that level of, I guess, cooperation is huge. So
you're right. I feel like, Kyle, that there needs to be like a PSA right now, right? Like I'm sitting here realizing and remembering all the stories I've ever heard about people being told they needed a new AC unit from these bigger companies the guys that they send out are commission based, and their pay is based on selling systems, not selling little $25 parts and getting $75 trip fees, right? And so a lot of, I don't want to say all, but a great many of our big AC companies are structured this way. And people are told they need new AC systems when they need maybe a small little capacitor.
Well, and part of that's tied to, ironically, a law from 15, 20 years ago about, getting R22 Freon out of use in the U.S. It was a 20-year, don't correct me if I'm wrong, 20-year plan that ended in 2020.
It was
right?
Bill Clinton that did it.
Yeah, and it got more and more expensive for recharging and all that. So it gave this whole umbrella of you need to replace your AC unit, but because it's not cost effective to repair this 7 times over the next 10 years, it's not that you need to do it right now. It's just I'm making that decision for you. Right. People don't want those kind of decisions made for them. If right now they're strapped and they could repair it for $150,
You're 100% right. So the attitude and the sales pitch that we heard from AC guys that we're hearing now, which is actually a valid one, there's no point in fixing this because the parts are too expensive and the Freon's too expensive. That's actually a valid point now, but we were hearing that 10 years ago when you could have just been repairing it and keeping it going over the course of 10 years.
Yeah, and then you have the whole ironic thing of the date was January 1st, 2020, and then COVID happened, and then that kind of the Freon ban became a little bit of a gray area. So it'll probably continue to go into effect now, but it bought some time.
Okay, so let's get into the level of one of the reasons why our contractors work so well for us is because they get a consistent level of business from us, right? Yes. And they really appreciate that, don't they?
Yeah, it's loyalty, appreciation. If you want to get the best bang for your buck, which we want to get for all of our clients, don't ask people to discount their service. Make their service worth it to them.
That's right.
If I guarantee you, I don't have to guarantee it, but if you know you're getting service at all my properties and all this stuff, there's a certain level of loyalty there, and call it retail value. We're not charged retail value. We're charged.
That's right. I call it a fair price, right? Because it's a price that maybe that's less than the average consumer would get, but it's still a fair price that makes it worthwhile for the contractor, because I operate by I think that there's a really simple rule that people either get or they don't get. And that is that you get what you pay for, right? That's true for everything in life, right? And you pay more to get more. You pay less, you're going to get less. That's just a really simple idea. And some people have a hard time wrapping their brain around it. But with contractors, it is so true.
It is true, especially if you look at the details. I mean, sometimes what you get isn't what you thought you were paying for, but you get what you pay for is important because it matters in the decisions you make, not just on using contractors, but on what upgrades you do and which direction you go with it. So what's better for the investment goal here? If it's a 30-year rental, what's better for a 30-year lifespan of this house versus what's better for this year? So,
yeah, love it. Love it. All right, Kyle, let's switch gears. Let's get away from contractors a little bit. How's that? Okay, so let's talk about...
It's a maintenance episode. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's maintenance and repairs, kind of, right? So let's talk about knowing when a specific update is necessary. And we've had some interesting things that we've done recently with some of our units that we could talk about, but this is important. This is important for whoever's managing your property to be able to recognize that this is necessary to improve the value of your rent. That's really the goal, right? This is a rental property, so you want to get the most, maximize the most rent you can out of it.
Yeah, and that takes... There's timeline decisions in there, like things you do during a flip versus during a turnover, during when a tenant's in there. Like I'm always huge on if you're going to renovate to make maximum profit on a rental, which is assumingly what most people do. Right. Then do that and make the changes that are going to mitigate regular maintenance over the course of that lease, or mitigate a whole bunch of repairs that add up to your entire renovation bill because they were done in specific trips over 3 years. All that adds up when you do it. Just like what you said earlier, you get what you pay for. You do everything you need to do all at the time you've set to do it. You're setting yourself up for a lot more success. When you leave 20% out, that 20% is going to be sprinkled over whatever time period horizon is still there. And cost-wise, that costs more money. It always costs more money. So
more money, more headache, right?
Yeah. It's bulk work, bulk discounts. Everything in life is cheaper when it's in the bulk.
I love it. So to your point, you're making the home, you also want to make the home more appealing to tenants, which is kind of your point there is, if you're going to do it during turnover, but when you're trying to decide what updates to do updates that are going to make the home more appealing to tenants. So more potential tenants want to rent the home. Yeah.
And it's not just, hate to steer it back to HVACs, but it's not just wanting to rent the home. We beat up on
foundations and HVACs today.
But staying in the home is also great for, you don't want turnovers. Homeowner doesn't want it. Tenants generally don't want to move. But one of those underlying things you don't really see and people don't mention as often is electricity bills. You could have an old unit that's driving up your tenant's electricity bill. Yeah, you don't care, but you're going to have a turnover every year because they have a $400 or $500 insane electricity bill when they could have $150. You think they're not looking at that? They are. And if they find out or they think that a new HVAC could be the solution to their electricity bill and you don't do it, then you're likely going to lose that tenant,
right?
And you're likely going to lose the next tenant, and you're likely going to lose the next tenant until you do it.
And there's turnover costs to all that, right? There's a cost to turning over tenants, right? So in between tenants, getting the home ready, marketing, all the costs that go into it.
Yeah.
So
and it's marketable to tenants to say I have new energy efficient HVAC with the water heater too. I guess not as big if we're being honest, but I mean it's still to see energy efficient things like new windows replaced, all that. Like if you know what you're talking about, and looking for cheap bills. Those are what people look for because you can't change that,
especially in the higher priced homes, right?
Oh yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
You're looking at a small duplex in Fort Worth. That tenant probably cares a little bit less than a hardworking family that's in a 4-bedroom in the middle of Mansfield, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they just have a different perspective on.
And the area matters too, right? Yep. I mean, we do live in North Texas where it gets in the hundreds during the summer and I'd say 32s, but can get down to 0 in the winter from what I've seen. So it's a big swing. It's a big load on your appliances. So it's important to look at all factors as always.
So this kind of goes along with that, and that's just you want to take away objections when you're doing, we're going to get into turnovers here in a minute, but whenever you have an opportunity to get rid of an objection, like what you mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe in that particular instance, that AC was the objection, but I'm thinking more like visual objections, right? If you have something in the home, a layout issue, a yard issue, something that is turning people off, when you're turning it over, when you're making a repair and you have an opportunity to fix it, do it. Get rid of that objection.
Yeah. I mean, when you're replacing appliances, you're probably talking about painting a room when you're painting the house and you want to avoid the baseboards, but everyone's not going to rent it because the baseboards weren't painted. Well, how much extra was that when your painters were in here? That kind of stuff. It's just making a wholesome decision towards your goals when you're renovating and when you're repairing.
So yeah, and along those lines, just taking advantage of, let's say you have a bigger loss, right? Or a bigger repair that you're doing. Sometimes it's better to your point, let's say you have a flood in the laundry room, but the 2 back bedrooms also need to be painted and you're going to have to repair the laundry room. Take advantage of it. Get it done. You're going to have contractors in there anyways. Get it done, knock it out, and it'll be cheaper than it will if you wait.
Plus tenant experience, getting it all done at once is a lot happier for the resident of any home than doing it getting a call every week, you're messing with their schedule. It's not fair to people to mess with their schedule any more than you have to. Not more than you want to, any more than you have to is really how you should look at it. So, these are people's homes.
And then, the other thing to remember when you're considering what updates to do and you're trying to decide what updates to do is they almost always increase the value of the home if and when you decide to sell it, right? So even if you don't plan to sell it anytime soon, somebody's going to sell that property at some point and benefit from that update that you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and generally you'd be you selling it when you go to put it on the market or whatever it is. But especially if you sell it as a rental, that's when you're selling a rental to another investor for a rental. Those things get looked at higher than when you're just selling it out on the market. People on the market, they're looking for what they want. Investors are looking for those data points. Well, how old's the roof? How old's the AC? It's all new? Okay, well then my whole calculation is different. The AC is 5 to 10 years old in the state of Texas. My calculation's a little bit different. So
we just sold
there is value.
Yeah, we just sold a duplex from one investor to another that they bought so quickly because of that right there, Kyle, because they renovated the entire place and they could see that, all this was well taken care of and renovated right before we went under contract, and that
was the only questions. They
were all
renovation and everything, and they were like, how old's the AC? How old's the roof? How old are the appliances? They were all replaced. There wasn't more questions. So
I love it, Kyle. So this is going to be a little bit repetitive, but I did want to talk about turnover from a turnover perspective. So a lot of what we did on turnover, we're making a lot of the decisions the same way that we just talked about, right? With maintenance.
Yeah, and our topic is how a good PM makes you more money. Well, from what we know, most PMs don't do what we're about to say. Is we actually go in there and not only do a turnover inspection and provide it to whoever you ask us to, with your okay on it, which 99% are. We will write up that list. Basically be the GC, so you don't have to pay a GC, and we don't charge you anything for it because it's quick, it's efficient. Like we said in the last episode, when you're not making money, we're not making money. So we're trying to make the process as efficient, seamless, and profitable for our clients as we can.
So you're right, and that's one of the ways that we add value that other people don't. So we manage the turnover where most property managers will just tell the homeowner, "Hey, property is going to be vacant on June 20th. Let us know when it's ready." Mm-hmm. Right? That's how most of them handle it.
Yeah, I wouldn't throw most in there. Or they'd give a second option of, this is what we'll do if you want us to handle it, blah, blah. This is how that's going to look, which I guess is what we do too, but it's more of this is not an added service. This is a piece of our service.
Right.
use it or don't if you choose to, but this is our service.
It's not going to cost you anymore.
Yeah, we manage your property from hire to cash flow. So, yeah.
All right, so let's get into turnovers a little bit. I've got one of the biggest benefits, I guess, that we can offer to people when we're doing turnovers is quick evaluation and quick action. Because speed is everything, right?
Time is money.
Vacancy rate. We watch our vacancy rate on our dashboard. I don't know if you pay attention to it, Kyle, but I watch it every day. It moves around. It goes from, 3 to 7. I've seen it. You have a tough turnover and it pops up to 17 days and comes back down, and so that number is really important to me because it tells me how well we're doing getting stuff turned over so we don't have vacancy time. You know why, Kyle? Because that's one of the biggest fears investors have, especially new investors. How long are my homes going to be vacant without any rent being paid?
Yeah, and turnover time it's huge into time horizons, all that stuff. So if you get as close as you can get to 0, the better. That's what they want to hear. And we pride ourselves on getting it as close to 0 as we can by being proactive, using those 30 days before move out to do everything we can do in that time, get all the info we can in that time, and flip it as quickly as we can.
Yeah,
so.
That's a good point. If we're managing it right now, we're doing exactly that. But what if we take over and somebody dumps it on us and we weren't managing it? It's like, okay, here's a new property, bam, go. And it's vacant, right? That's where we're able to make a quick evaluation, take quick action, because we have everything at our fingertips. We have contractors at our fingertips. We have the answers that we need at our fingertips. We know what we want to see and what we want the end result to be, and we can get to it very quickly.
And we can pre-market it. We can do a whole bunch of stuff that, tools and resources get it done.
One of the other things, Kyle, that some of our clients expect and some just appreciate is getting multiple quotes for things. This is one of the other reasons why I feel like we're able to quickly do that without slowing down the process. And I say that because getting multiple quotes for some trades really slows things down. You got to get this guy out. He tells you what you want. Then you got to call somebody else and wait another day or two for him to get out there and get the quote back to you. And like a week or two could go by while you're waiting for 3 quotes for something, right? And that's money lost. So being able to get those quotes quickly from contractors that we know and trust is another huge advantage. I can present to my homeowner 2 or 3 quotes very quickly and, give them a recommendation.
Yeah, and you can call it the power of property management if you want. When we show up on their phones, they try to jump to make sure they can get in the regular business line, right? Where if any retail customer does it, it's not the same rush. And that's when we need to do that. Bringing it back to loyal pricing and all that stuff, it's generally a testament to getting our clients to love our loyal contractors, because they don't know that we're getting other bids for their work, and generally they never find out because I get other bids and I'm like, yep, it's still the one. So and they stop asking. So One of my final things here, Kyle, that I wanted to talk about, experience just gives us the understanding of what a property needs to maximize that investment, to get the most out of it that you possibly can. And so I wrote down something here that and I have kind of an analogy that I like to use. Don't overdress for the occasion. Yeah. So this is one of I get sellers that ask me to help them sell their home, and I get and homeowners that renting their properties both they fall victim to this HGTV mentality. I got to do all this stuff. I saw this guy do this. I got to do this. I got to have a barn door there and a ranch sink there, and so. Sometimes the analogy is like this: you don't dress up in a tuxedo and a cocktail dress to go to a backyard barbecue. You're still going to get a hot dog and baked beans.
right? No matter how much money you spent on that tuxedo and that dress and how much time you spent to get it all dressed up, when you went to that backyard barbecue, you're not getting any more out of it. You're still getting beans and hot dogs.
Yeah, and I think what you're getting at is making a rental how you want it, or how you think it should look, or making one of your rentals to your desires and all the things you would put in your home, and forgetting that you're not creating a home for yourself. You're not even creating a home for anyone specific. You're creating a home for the market.
Exactly.
Unless you're not, you're creating a home for the market. So those things you think making you feel better or whatever are actually hurting because they're specific to you, which means they're sometimes specific to others, but not specific to a whole nother net of people. So I hate to say just keep it a blank slate and neutral, but when you get outside of the realm of I'm doing this for a reason that relates to a subset of people or something like that, you're not targeting the whole market, and you always want to target the whole market. So,
well, yeah, and I just don't want. I just hate to see people waste money and do things that aren't going to get the return back from them. Really is really the point, right? So, like, people do a specific update thinking, okay, I'm going to be able to get $100 more a month. Well, maybe not. Maybe the market doesn't care about that as much as you do, and nobody's willing to pay for that, right? But you could take that money and spend it over here and get more money, and that's kind of where our expertise comes in.
Yeah, and there's a fine line with some of the things, like some updates and changes are appreciated by tenants once they live there, but not noticed at all on looking at it, right? And I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it. It's just something you should understand when you make those decisions, that it's not adding value because it's adding personal value to someone who lives there. It's not.
It didn't affect the amount of rent that you got,
that they were willing
or the
to pay to live there.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So, I mean, you could soundproof a whole house so that the neighbors aren't annoying, but I'm not going to tell you, depending on, unless it's a very specific house, I'm not going to tell you that that's a profitable change to make to your property considering the cost. So
I love it, Kyle. This has been a really good topic. This is like I said, it's probably the second biggest way that we have an impact on people's investment on a regular basis every single day.
Yeah, we talked about pricing last week, where we use that tool to pay for ourselves. I'd like to say that some of these tools also use us to pay for 100%. Themselves. If you were going to pay for a repair that was $250 that we can get for $200, I'm not going to advertise that, but it's still a metric there that it's $50 cheaper.
The Setons, when they sat down with us, talked a lot about that. Trevor Kerr, when he sat down with us, he talked a lot about that very thing. So it's really, really important. Find somebody.
The things that don't get charged, right? I mean, if you call us, we have the experience. If you call us, there's a lot of things tenants will call us about over the phone where we'll read between the lines because we've heard this before, whatever it is, and either talk them through. Like sometimes there's been huge trip charges and scary repairs avoided because I was like, please go check that breaker in the garage first before I send people out. Or is your GFCI not, little things, they sound little, but they can, if they get chased around or they get presented as a big enough thing that it's not, and you don't know how to see that, it can add unnecessary cost. Even if it's a $75 trip fee or whatever, it's still unnecessary, right? Especially if that person didn't do anything and just told you, this ain't my problem.
Well, that goes back to experience, right? Yeah. And being able to know what the problem might be and how to handle it. Our contractors do that too. You know that? They do that a lot more often than we realize sometimes. We've got one contractor in particular that does, I don't know, he probably does 60, 70% of our repairs. He's a huge part of our business. I'm referring to Juan at JC Remodeling. And he goes out to properties all the time, diagnoses things. Did I say that right? Does diagnosis for us. And does small repairs for us and gets us past a problem and then doesn't even charge us for it. Again, because of the amount of business he gets from us.
Yeah. And that didn't come in a day. that margin
That's
of
right.
business didn't come in a day or a year or any of that. It takes time and it takes experience and him showing the loyalty and the work that would be done and that he would do those things, that he's saving our clients money and us using him saves our clients money.
Yeah.
So it's all important. And another piece to that is every once in a while, maybe every 100 years, this crazy winter storm might come through, and every plumber in this half of the world will be unavailable to everybody who needs them.
One was a savior, wasn't he?
Him and other contractors, but yeah, specifically him, is putting us not just at the priority, but in the front of the line throughout the whole process.
I think
we wouldn't have been able to do what we did.
I think Thursday of that week was the first day that people could actually somewhat drive, and it was really only the people with trucks, right, that could drive on Thursday. He was on the road handling over half of our issues on Thursday and finished repairing all of our leaks on Friday, I believe it was.
With him and one of his guys, because he couldn't put a, he can't risk his guys. We can't risk our guys. I was running around turning water off at places while he was running around, stopping leaks. And, that's the big fish at the time when places are flooding. But even the processes after that of correcting the damage from all that stuff, going through the insurance process with a lot of homes,
we could do an entire podcast on Snowmageddon, huh? We could just call it the Snowmageddon podcast.
We could, and we're talking about it pretty much in the past, and it's also a testament.
And we're still dealing with it.
We are still dealing with it, but I guarantee you there's a lot of property managers, a lot of managers out there that are heavily still dealing with it because of these same supply chain issues, and we are in beginning of June. This happened mid-February, and that's the extent to where this just shocked it. So, and then plumber prices go up. Imagine that.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, Kyle. Good topic. Thanks for sharing with us. Next week, we want to get into tenant selection as kind of our part 3 of how a property manager can make you more money and help you maximize your investment, right?
Yeah, tenant selection, leasing process, marketing, all ties back to tenant selection, but it's a huge piece of not just the pain points that we hear from clients that hire us, but also the things we solve for our clients. So it's valuable in itself.
Love it. All right, Kyle, let's wrap this up. If you don't have any other thoughts, I look forward to getting into tenant selection next week in our next podcast.
Can't wait for it. Hope you guys are looking forward to it. And as I said last week, if you guys would like a free analysis on all of your properties, or just to let you know what we can do for you, how much we can make you, or rent price, whatever you want to see, send us an email at showmethemoney@wearetpm.com.
I love that.
That was showmethemoney@wearetpm.com.
Can I do that one time? Show me the money at tpm.com.
At wearetpm.com.
Oh, wearetpm. See, I messed it up. I messed it up. Okay. Show me the money at wearetpm.com. You did it so much better, Kyle.
You just wanted to end at money and say, show me the money.
I just wanted to say, show me the money.
Happy to show you the money. Email us and see you guys next week.
All right. Good job, Kyle. Thanks.